Welcome to Real Life Beyond Faith, where a formerly Christian, currently atheist couple takes a deep dive into the experience of life after deconversion. This is episode 10. I'm your host, Jenica Crail.
And I'm your host, Patrick Crail.
And today's going to be kind of a different episode. We're not going to be talking as much about our deconversion and our story as we're going to be talking about the conference that I went to over the weekend. It was an atheist conference, Mythinformation conference put on by Mythicist Milwaukee. And it was an interesting experience, to say the least. A lot of you know about kind of what was going on there and the controversy surrounding it. If you're not familiar, you will be by the end of the episode. First, we would like to express our heartbreak and our sadness over what happened in Las Vegas. There was a shooting actually today. This will be released several days from now, so this will be old news, but there was a shooting in Las Vegas at a country concert, and as of right now, 59 are dead, and I think around 600.
Somewhere around 600 injured.
600 injured, yeah.
That's just insane.
Absolutely horrifying. And if you are affected by this in any way, like if you know someone who was there or you were there yourself, we're really, really sorry for the experience and for any kind of trauma that this has caused. It's just absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, nobody should have to deal with that and live through that.
Yeah. Breaks my heart. The one silver lining is that we saw a lot of people step up today to step in and rescue people, to help people who were injured. We all came together to help each other through this.
Whenever stuff like this happens, which is way too often, I sometimes see a quote floating around from Mr. Rogers. He's talking about like when he was a kid, he would see all the bad in the world, and his mom pointed out to him to look for the helpers in situations like this, in bad situations, and you'll find hope.
Right.
And we saw that with the Las Vegas shooting. A lot of people helping and pitching in and stepping up to help everyone who was in need.
Yeah.
I mean, that damage can't be undone, but
I heard a story tonight. I was actually leading a recovering from religion support group tonight, and one of the ladies there was saying that she heard that there was a woman who actually got on the phone and ordered sandwiches for all of the nurses who were helping the victims. It's like little acts of kindness like that show us that the world is still a good place, even with terrible people in it.
Yeah, and I saw a video today, too, of a blood donation bank, and that place was packed. It was in Vegas, and they were doing a pan around the room, and there was like a line out the door. Every bed was full. So yeah, a lot of people pitching in and stepping up to try to help, which is awesome to see. Got to
pay attention to that kind of stuff when you feel like you're sinking into despair.
Yeah.
Which I felt myself doing earlier today. Like this morning I woke up and saw the news and I'm just like, and I've lost hope for humanity again.
Yeah. And then the numbers just kept rising.
Yeah. And I, throughout the day, I was reminded, like Seth Andrews posted about it, and he said something about how, we can focus on the tragedy and the horror, or we can focus on those who stepped up to make a difference and to help. And, in a time like this, we kind of have to focus on the good.
Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise, we'll be overwhelmed by the despair. So, why do I always choose right now to eat?
Every time.
Sorry, we just had to take a break because our cats decided to eat right here in the room. They do this every single week. As soon as we start recording, they come in and start munching on their food in the same room that we're recording.
So we usually have to stop, take a break, move the food dish out, They look at us like, why'd you do that?
Yeah. Like, how dare you? I was eating that.
All right. Before we get into the meat of the discussion, talking about the conference, we're going to hear from a couple of our friends who also have podcasts. So yeah, check them out.
Have y'all ever wondered what it's like to be a redneck with empathy? Have you never heard of a Southerner who isn't a blathering bigot? Well, have I got the show for you? It's the Podunk Polymath Podcast, hosted by myself, Chris, and it's the sentiments of a secular, sarcastic, screwed-up Southern SJW and skeptic. You can find me and the show on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or your favorite podcatcher. Y'all stop on by and take it easy now, okay?
Hey, all you listeners, I'm Robert.
And I'm Amy from Secular Yakking.
And we just wanted to let you know that if you've got 30 minutes to kill,
then we're the podcast for you. We're just some old married couple who's been yakking at each other over the many years.
And we thought we should start making it so you can listen in on our yakking.
We dig past the mainstream and bring you the news that you may or may not have heard about.
We take a look at politics, religion, science, and pretty much anything we feel like yakking about and sharing it with you. And let us not forget our weekly Mr. Potter Award.
No, we're not professionals on anything we talk about, but we love to yak about stuff and give you our opinion on the matter.
So tune in at secularyakking.com or check out our feed on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and anywhere good podcasts can be heard.
And who knows what craziness will happen.
Yeah, just like this.
And we're back. So, God, I don't even know where to start with this.
How about we start with who was at the conference? What was the conference about? And just in general, what was going on?
Okay. So the Mythicist Milwaukee conference has been around for, I think, 4 years now. Like, I think this was the fourth one. And it has not been surrounded in controversy until this year. And it was just because of who they invited. Instead of inviting Bible scholars like they did last year was Robert Price debating Bart Ehrman about mythicism. And that's fascinating.
Yeah, that would have been a good debate.
Yeah. They're both like relatively respectable. I mean, Robert Price is a Trump supporter, so I mean, relatively respectable. Bart Ehrman is, fantastic. And they were just talking, having a debate and having a civil discussion about whether Jesus existed or not. But this year, instead of something like that, they decided to go a different route and invited a few YouTube personalities, atheists on YouTube who are kind of anti-social justice, anti-feminism, and just overall like not really in sync with our community, but have a lot of followers online, like on YouTube.
Right.
So a lot of people had a big problem with that because, their viewpoints and the things that they've said and done are kind of despicable, especially Sargon of Akkad. He was like the biggest, issue that people had with like the invitees. I mean, there was Armored Skeptic and Shoe on Head. And yeah, they have some problematic viewpoints and I don't agree with a lot of what they say. But some of what they say, like I can kind of get on board with, like that we shouldn't live in an echo chamber, that we need to be skeptical about everything. Okay, yeah, I agree with that. I disagree with their conclusions on a lot of things. I also agree with some of their conclusions. So it's, it's whatever. And their talk in the morning was actually like semi-decent. Like, I disagreed. Partly.
What did they talk about?
Oh, just that, like skepticism, echo chambers, identity politics, that kind of stuff. So there were points I disagreed with, points I agreed with. it was fine because I can sit there and I can hear points of view that I disagree with, and I can, take the good and leave the bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with sitting there and listening to someone you disagree with. However, when it came to the debate between Sargon of Akkad and Thomas Smith, it was a whole different story. And I don't know if we want to jump right into that, or if maybe I should just like lead up to that a little bit with like some background.
Yeah, maybe we start there.
Okay.
Before we go too far, though, just note that Jenica went. She attended this, and I did not. So I didn't get to see all the stuff firsthand. I saw a lot of stuff posted on social media. So I was able to, try to keep up with what was going on there and, talking with Jenica to see how things were going.
Yeah, like I kept you updated on everything.
Yeah, because we knew there was a lot of drama and controversy with this this conference. So, I mean, we were trying to, keep our eye on how things were going and, read the crowd. And
yeah, and for the record, I didn't pay for a ticket to this thing. Thomas got me a ticket for free. Like, he didn't pay for it either. So I don't know that I would have gone if I had to actually like give them money to be there. But I don't know, maybe I would have, because I feel like there needed to be people there to support Thomas, and he was going. So to leave him there alone, that would have been even more horrible. I mean, it was horrible, but if he would have been there without any support whatsoever, just surrounded by people of that caliber, it would have just been horrible. So leading up to this conference, I was trying to figure out if it would be worth it to go. I wanted to go because there were a few people that were going that I wanted to see, and I wanted to be there to support Thomas. But I was also seeing from people who were saying that no one should be going to this, that we should just let, the horrible people have their horrible conference and all of us just duck out. And I didn't think that would be the solution, because how do you combat bad ideas with good ideas? Yeah.
Let them have free reign and talk freely.
Right. Yeah. That's not it. That's not how you combat bad ideas.
Although I don't think it will work in every situation.
What, good ideas versus bad?
Well, all right, say like a Klan rally. People probably shouldn't show up to that, like to the actual rally, protesting it. Yeah. But to actually like
participate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was different than that, because they invited people on both sides. They invited Thomas Smith, and they invited Sargon. So they wanted there to be a discussion. They wanted these two to go head to head, talk about ideologies, and debate. Some people that I disagreed with had a platform all to themselves. And that was one of the big issues that people had with this, is that, Armored Skeptic and Shoe on Head weren't being challenged on stage. They were just given the platform and allowed to speak. Well, they also gave a platform to Seth Andrews, which he ended up backing out. But he had a platform there too. So there was going to be, different sides being talked about. And I kind of admired that, that they wouldn't just invite a whole bunch of people who agree with each other. That's kind of not their thing. Their thing is to have like different ideas being challenged. So they definitely had differing views there. I think they just chose the wrong people to represent those different ideas. Sargon was not the right choice. He's a shit kicker. He stirs up trouble. He's a shock jock. He wasn't worthy of that platform, in my opinion.
Now, I don't know a whole lot about him, but from what I do know, he's just in general kind of an a-hole, from what I can tell. Yeah. But I don't know, like, I don't know him well enough to know, but is he along the lines of Milo, who is going to these places and like spewing hate speech, where stuff like that is a dangerous thing to give someone a platform for? Like, people were protesting Milo speaking at a college.
Milo Yiannopoulos,
Yes.
in case anyone doesn't know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if Sargon's on that same level, if people should have been protesting him being there to begin with.
Well, people were protesting. They didn't show up to protest on the street, but I mean, online people were
Right.
protesting, yeah. And if you're comparing him to Milo, I guess to a degree, yeah, because
I mean, there was
know,
that one at
one
least
of-
tweet.
yeah, one of the things that he did is he tweeted at a victim of sexual assault, Jessica Phillips, or Jess Phillips, I'm not sure which she goes by. And she's trying to start a campaign to stop online bullying. And his
Which is a good
tweet,
thing.
of course. Yeah, for anyone compassionate, it's a good thing. But he tweeted her and said, "I wouldn't even rape you." This is a person who is the victim of sexual assault. And he felt the need to tweet her, "I wouldn't even rape you." Like, and people are saying, like, people on Sargon's side are saying, "Why are you so offended by that?" He was saying he wouldn't rape her.
That's not the point he was making.
No. Yeah. The implication is that if she was worthy, he would rape her. Now, I don't actually think Sargon would rape her in real life, but the implication of this tweet is that he would, whether he would or not. And that's disgusting. That is disgusting behavior, and that is sexual harassment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anyone says. They say, well, he was saying he wouldn't rape her. No, that's not the implication of the tweet.
No.
The implication is that if she was worthy or if she was attractive enough, then she would be worthy of being raped. Like, that's just a horrible, horrible
Like,
thing
she's
to say.
just low. She's so low that he wouldn't even do
A
such an
heinous
act
act. Yeah, that's
to her.
It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
that's disgusting.
So a man of that caliber should not have been invited to have a platform at an atheist conference. We are better than that. And I understand completely the people who decided to boycott this conference. For me, I wasn't giving them my money, and I wasn't giving them my support. I was giving Thomas my support.
Who was the voice of reason against.
Mm-hmm. And I don't regret it.
Yeah.
So to back it up a little bit, I posted on Facebook, "Hey, I'm thinking about going to the Mythicist Milwaukee conference. Are any of you going?" Trying to figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Sharon Frankel, who has the podcast Habeas Humor, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I might go to this thing. Let me look into some things and I'll let you know." Well, she did, and she decided to go, and she got a plane ticket, and we decided to room together. So I was like, okay, sweet. Like, I won't be there by myself. I'll be with Sharon. And then Bryce Blankenagel of Naked Mormonism and My Book of Mormon, he was going to go too. So me and Sharon flew to Chicago. It actually worked out perfectly because we got there around the same time, and then Bryce picked us up like 15 minutes later. So it was awesome. Like, we went out and got Chicago pizza, which was my first time actually having Chicago pizza in Chicago, and it was fantastic. It was so delicious. And I'm one of those weird people. I like Chicago pizza and I like New York style pizza. So pizza is pizza. I love pizza. So it was fantastic. But it was really good hanging out with them. And I especially am glad that I went to spend time with the wonderful people who showed up. And there were several wonderful people who showed up to support Thomas and to be there to hear, what we thought was going to be an interesting debate, which it ended up just being a total shit show. So getting to the debate, which they framed as an interview, it ended up not being much of an interview. It was just them arguing.
And Sargon ended up talking over Thomas most of the time.
Yeah. So we all got there. I was super nervous for Thomas. And I know like he was nervous going into it because he was going to be in front of an audience of mostly Sargon's supporters. And it was just, I mean, I'm sure it was very overwhelming. But he did his preparation. He was ready to like hit some points and discuss these topics with Sargon. And it just, oh my gosh, it turned into a nightmare right away. The first thing he brought up, or one of the first things, I think first he was like asking Sargon, why do you think that people were wanting to deplatform you? And Sargon was like, you should know that. You're an SJW. You should be the one answering that question. He's like, well, I do know why. I want to know if you know why. But then from there, he asked him about that tweet, you know, and he read the tweet out loud. And before Sargon even got a chance to respond,
he even cut him off a couple times too.
Yeah, like Thomas was trying to talk to him about it. He kept interrupting. And then before even responding to, you know, Thomas quoting the tweet, half of the crowd, I mean, it seemed like more than half, but, you know, from what I've heard from other people, it was like half the crowd erupted in cheering and laughing and clapping. I sat back.
It's disgusting.
Like, oh my God, what have I walked into? And I know several of the women who came to support Thomas actually walked out at that point because they didn't feel safe in that crowd. And I don't blame them one little bit. I wanted to stay there because I wanted there to be people in the room who agreed with Thomas so that we could, you know, cheer him on as much as possible.
And not be outvoiced by all the Sargon supporters.
Right. Which we were anyway. Like there was no way. Like I started, you know, cheering for Thomas when he would make good points, and I at a couple of points shouted across the auditorium to other people who were yelling stuff because I'm like, we're not going to be out voiced here, but I mean, there was no way.
Out voiced, but not silent.
Right. I'm not going to sit there and not say anything.
Yeah.
You know how I am. you would have to put duct tape over my mouth to keep me quiet. Feel kind of bad for Bryce. I was like sitting there like freaking out. And like I kept like turning to him and saying stuff like, what? But yeah, it was very disheartening because like I said, Sargon just kept interrupting. He wouldn't let Thomas get a thought out. He wouldn't even let Thomas get a question out. Like Thomas kept trying to ask him stuff, like get his opinion on stuff. Which at that point, I didn't care what his opinion was because he was like being such a disgusting human being, and all his followers were disgusting.
From what I've heard and have seen on video so far, he sounded very smug about being there in the first place and basically looking down on Thomas, like, why are you even up here, like, you know, questioning me?
Yeah, he was very condescending and rude. I mean, people could argue that Thomas was being condescending and rude too, because at that point, I mean, I could see it on Thomas's face. He was livid. I mean, people were cheering for sexual harassment. I was livid too. People walked out because they were so upset. Like Thomas stayed on that stage. He sat there in front of a crowd of people jeering him the whole time, shouting at him, interrupting him. And he didn't back down until the time that they said that the thing would be over. And then, you know, at 2:42, he said, it's 2:40. You said that this would go to 2:40. I'm out. And I don't blame him one bit for doing that. I would want to stay.
That'd be tough to stay through that whole thing. Like, I saw a couple clips. There were short clips from people posting videos on Facebook, and just watching it, I would not have been able to stay on stage. So
Yeah.
kudos to you, Thomas, for being able to stick that out and try to fight. But
I was so
ridiculous.
impressed with his courage. I mean, the courage to be there in the first place and to take on the role of challenging this guy, being the only person on our side of things to challenge somebody there. I mean, that took huge courage to begin with. And then to stay on that stage after hearing the crowd cheering for sexual harassment. I mean, that's incredible.
So how long were they on stage? Did they have like an hour slot?
It was a little over an hour, I think.
And that was debate and then some time at the end for a Q&A from the audience?
Yeah, they were supposed to have 20 minutes at the end for Q&A, which one of the organizers came out on stage and tried to cut them short and go straight to Q&A. And Thomas is like, no, you told me I had this much time to interview him. I'm going to use that time. And so he just ignored the guy and just kept asking questions and kept challenging him.
Were there any points in that debate where you think either Sargon or the crowd actually heard a point from Thomas and like gave them pause?
No.
Or were they just completely on Sargon's side?
They were
and just
completely
ignorant, or not ignorant, but
they were
not listening to anything that Thomas had to say or give him any kind of merit?
No, they weren't giving him anything. They were waiting for little, applause bait comments from Sargon and then freaking out. And Thomas was just like standing up for compassion and empathy, being willing to look at the data and the facts and realize that we have a problem in our society and that we should try to change that. I don't understand how that is something you would try not to do or that you would fight against. Like, it's one thing to not be interested in helping the marginalized groups, but to actively fight against it, to try to disprove it. What is wrong with these people? Like, that's what just blew my mind about this. I'm like, how can you be so non-compassionate as a human being? It just felt like I was in a room full of sociopaths. Maybe I was, and that was kind of terrifying.
Jeez.
But Thomas held his own. He did a great job given the circumstances. And a couple of times he lost his temper, but I mean, I would not expect that he wouldn't. I lost my temper, like right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And at one point he was pointing at the audience and saying, "You should be ashamed of yourselves. Is this really what you want the movement to be? You should be ashamed." And they were all screaming back at him and yelling. And I was just sitting there like applauding, like, yeah, you're right. This is ridiculous. How do you cheer for this kind of stuff? And at one point, Sargon told Thomas that he had no principles. Thomas Smith.
No principles. Okay.
No principles. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, that's when I was convinced that this was just a big joke to Sargon. Like, that he wasn't.
It sounded like it.
He wasn't there to have, an honest an intellectually honest conversation. He was there to be a dick. He was there to rile up his audience.
Oh, he was probably playing, like you said, playing to his audience and just being his character.
Right. And he knew right off the bat that the audience was his because they all cheered that tweet. So right off the bat, he's like, okay, yeah, this debate is mine.
I'm really curious to hear audio or see video from the event and, maybe hear some people's takes on it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of other people are pretty curious to hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting when the video comes out. Because, I know that I probably missed bits of it too, just because like being in the moment and being so outraged, and plus I was on my phone posting throughout different parts, so I might have missed some things.
Yeah.
What I did catch was horrifying though. And I I don't know, like I didn't want to stay in the room, but at the same time, I was like, I have to stay.
Yeah, I wonder how bad Sargon's side is gonna twist the story or, edit.
Oh, they've already twisted it.
Yeah.
Like quite a bit. Like
But I mean, once the actual video comes out, as far as
no, they won't be able
how
to.
they might edit it.
No, they won't be able to twist it. I mean, they could take little clips from it and say, see how condescending and rude Thomas was being.
Right.
But honestly, like if you're a person who cheers sexual harassment, I don't care how condescending he was to you. Like you
deserve it.
Yeah. You don't get respect at that point.
So that was the worst of the conference, right?
Yeah. But then after the debate and Thomas, walked off the stage, he actually just left. And no one really knew where he went, but he went to go take a walk and wander around. We ended up meeting up with him at a brewery nearby to have lunch and to, show our support for him and stuff. And there were a lot of people there, actually. I think it was around 20, 25 people that showed up, like encouraging him, telling me he did awesome, that we were really proud of him and stuff. And that really cheered him up. I think that really helped. And he's still, he wasn't doing great because like at one point I was like, hey, are you all right? He's like, don't ask me that. I'm not going to be all right for a while.
Understandably so.
Right. But I was really glad to see so many people showing up because honestly, like being there in that auditorium, I didn't feel like there was anybody else besides like the few of us I was sitting with. Like it was just so overwhelmingly Sargon supporters. I'm like, where are our people? And I even posted something on Facebook just like freaking out saying like there should be more people here to support Thomas. Like it's pissing me off that Sargon is getting cheered while Thomas is making the good points. And I later edited that post and said, I didn't mean, it wasn't my intention to shame anybody who decided not to come. I understand completely why people chose not to go. And I wanted to make sure like no one felt like I was shaming people for not being there. I was just so frustrated in the moment. So afterwards at the restaurant, it was really nice to see so many people giving him love and encouraging him, and people online encouraging him. There were a lot of people commenting on my posts, like saying that Thomas is their hero and stuff. So that was good. It was nice to see that. But when I left after the debate, like before we knew where Thomas even was, I ran into one of the organizers and was talking to him. And he was saying,
this was pretty interesting.
Yeah. He looked at me with pain in his face and said, I am so embarrassed right now. Like this should not have happened. The way he was treated on that stage was horrible. He's like, I don't know what to do. I can't believe that this just happened. And so he was really upset about it. And it was interesting to hear it from his perspective as being one of the organizers, Mm-hmm. And he even came out to lunch with us and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see like if he sticks it out with Mythicist Milwaukee and what.
I was going to say, I hope there's a silver lining with how poorly this went. With him being so embarrassed, and hopefully some of the others seeing how out of control it was. One, to not schedule those kind of people ever again.
Right.
Or two, that they won't get the support next year for doing something like this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope they learn from this. And at the very least, if you're going to invite someone like that and have them be challenged, have a damn moderator up there. Like,
right,
why did they not have a moderator?
It was supposed to be a debate. If you have a debate, there should be a moderator.
Well, it's because they were framing it as an interview. But if you put two people on the stage who have so vastly different beliefs and perspectives, you need a moderator. It's not going to be an interview. It's going to be a debate. And, it was so heated from the very get-go. They definitely should have had a moderator. But I talked to Thomas today and kind of asked him, after you've had a day to reflect, how do you feel about it? Do you think that it was still good that you went? And he said that he does think that it was good that he went, and that he thinks that it possibly had a net positive for the movement. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. I imagine he might elaborate a little bit in his next podcast episode talking about it on Serious Inquiries Only. So I'll be interested to hear what he says about it after having time to think about it.
Yeah, I am curious to hear his take because, I wasn't there as a spectator.
Right.
I'm only seeing secondhand information. So I'm curious to see how he felt about it and what his thoughts are on it.
Yeah. I'm wondering if he's thinking that, we've learned from this experience, that
I would hope that we can.
Now that certain people aren't worth that platform of speaking at a conference, and the kind of people it draws are not the kind of people we want to have in our movement. I mean, I know that's how I feel about it. I mean, I know for me, the kind of people I want in our movement are people who are compassionate, who have empathy, who want to see marginalized people become less marginalized, to have
and
more
change.
Yeah, to have more rights, to not be victimized and bullied. And I mean, I don't understand anyone who wouldn't want those things. Like, it's just baffling to me. But apparently there are people out there like that within the atheist community, and that's not who I want part of my movement. That's not who I want coming to our conferences. And so we need to invite people who are going to draw the right kind of crowd. Yes, we can have people there who disagree, but I wouldn't recommend inviting a shock jock, like that's not going to be beneficial. That's not going to draw the right kind of people. We know that now because we witnessed it. And, I think that's what Thomas is talking about when he says like this may have a net positive, because we just witnessed what happens when you invite shitty people to a conference. And then in the VIP party, Thomas is being approachable. I mean, I was impressed that he even went to the VIP party after that. Like, I seriously thought that he would just skip out on the rest of everything. But once again, he had courage and he went, and he talked to around like 15 Sargon supporters and let them, tell him what they thought and challenge him. And one of the guys, he stood there and talked Thomas's ear off for 4 minutes and then ended it by saying, "So I hate everything about you." When he said that, Thomas was just like, "All right, bye," and walked away. And like, I think what people are saying about Thomas, like coming off as rude, was because he was kind of standoffish. He didn't know who was going to approach him in goodwill to actually have a real conversation, and who was going to come up and just like spit fire at him. So of course he was standoffish. What did they expect?
Right. Plus he's in an audience full of Sargon supporters who just witnessed the quote unquote debate where, he's getting, stressed out and angry. And it was a high, well, not maybe angry, but a high stress environment.
He was angry. He was angry.
So, yeah, had all of that beforehand, too, to add to the mix.
Right. Yeah, I totally do not blame Thomas one bit for being standoffish, for being upset, for being angry. Like, if they have a problem with him for that, like, just watch the clip of people applauding sexual harassment at the very beginning of the damn discussion. We were all angry. You don't do that if you're a decent human being. And he called them horrible, and he was right to do so. They were being horrible. And he called them deplorable, too. They didn't like that too much. But I mean, if you're deplorable, you're deplorable. Don't be deplorable if you don't want to be called that.
Don't cheer on rape or rape jokes.
Yeah. So it was interesting. And like I was saying, I was, impressed with Thomas for coming to the VIP party. Tom Curry of Cognitive Dissonance showed up with Haley Derby, his girlfriend. And it was actually a lot of fun. It was nice hanging out with them and stuff. Then at one point, Tom decided that he was going to confront Sargon. So we were outside and Tom goes up to him and starts asking him questions. He wasn't being threatening. He was just confronting him. I mean, he was being confrontational because he was obviously disagreeing with Sargon, but there was no threat of violence. He was just, talking to him. And at one point, Sargon took a cigarette and put it in Haley's face. And so she smacked his hand away. Like, don't put your cigarette in my face. And that's when it got a little bit more heated because then Tom's like, oh my God, you just like, what the hell? And things got a little bit more heated, but there was never, ever violence on the table. I don't know where people were getting that from. I was there. I saw what happened. They were talking and the organizers went and got the police to have Tom removed. Seriously? Like, it made absolutely no sense. Like, yes, we're standing there arguing, but to remove him?
Yeah.
It was just incredible. So...
yeah, and I saw the video of that too and saw that there was no physical contact. I mean, besides, putting the cigarette in Haley's face. But, I mean, you could hear a bunch of people talking. You couldn't necessarily understand what was being said all the time. But, yeah, there was no physical confrontation. Mm-hmm. It was a heated discussion because it was controversial topics, but... mm-hmm. No need to throw someone out over that.
Right. So, of course, people are skewing that. They're saying that Thomas sent his goon to approach Sargon. Thomas did not send Tom. Tom did that on his own. He just wanted to go talk to Sargon. He's free to do that. Thomas didn't even want to engage with Sargon for the rest of the night. The only reason Thomas got involved is because Sargon put his cigarette in Haley's face and he's like, no.
Yeah.
So who can blame him for that? And people were saying that they were drunk and belligerent. That is not true either. They were drinking slowly throughout the night. I know because I was with them. Thomas barely had anything to drink all day. He didn't feel like drinking and he wanted to keep a clear head. So, yeah, you'll see all kinds of stuff on the internet from people, especially on Twitter. Twitter's just like, I don't know. It just attracts people like that for some reason. I've seen all kinds of stuff. I was arguing on Twitter all day today. And I usually don't argue on Twitter because I feel like it's a waste of time. It was probably still a waste of time today, but at least I was able to get on there and defend what happened a little bit.
Yeah, debating on a platform that only allows 140 characters at a time is not the best place to have
a detailed discussion.
Constructive discourse.
Although I can say today, one of the people that I was debating with and like talking about the details of what happened, we were both there and we both just perceived things differently. He perceived things wrong. But at the end of our conversation, I said, hey, I've got to go. I need to be somewhere, but thanks for staying civil. And he responded and said, glad you all made it out and glad that you had safe travels. And I said, same to you. And I was thinking, this is how you talk to another human being online. Like we're all human beings. Yeah, I'm talking to, what feels like is just some anonymous person on my phone. Mm-hmm. But there's another human being on the other end of that. And we have to keep that in mind when we're talking to people online.
Well, when we do talk to people online, we have that filter of our screens in front of us that we don't see the person face to face. So we don't have that in-person interaction to try to I mean, you get, facial cues, social cues from them. It's a lot easier to talk civilly in person. Plus, you just don't act like that with people in person typically.
Yeah, typically. Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah. I try to talk to people online the way I would if I were in person with them. And
I don't always do that.
Yeah.
I'm not always good at that.
It takes a little bit more effort and you have to be conscious of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like reminded of that fact when I was talking to Trump supporters and Sargon supporters at the VIP party, and even like during the day too. Like we were talking to some people. It's like, these are just other human beings. Yeah, they're not living in reality, but they are human beings with thoughts and emotions, and they came from somewhere. You know, maybe they came from a place of not having empathy, or maybe they just have bad ideas, but we can still have a civil discussion, even if we come out on total opposite ends of things. I spent most of the VIP party talking to people that I disagreed with, and I didn't have a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just something to keep in mind. Like, we can have civil discussion. Like, if I was talking to someone and they were like, oh, yeah, I love that he made that tweet to Jess Phillips, then okay, the discussion's over at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can have a conversation and they can, you know, be somewhat respectable and stuff like that, then I think that that's what we should shoot for in person and online.
Yeah. Bite the urge.
Yeah. But, you know, I look at the conference and I see that it was a bit of a shit show for the debate. But I also have a lot of really good memories that I walked away with, like hanging out with Sharon and Bryce. And I also got to hang out with David Fitzgerald a little bit. And of course, Tom and Haley and Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Travis Glenn and a few other people who showed up to the restaurant. And so we had some really good times. It was nice to see all those familiar happy faces. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not happy, but
yeah,
they were
people we don't always get to
wonderful
see very
people.
often.
Yeah. So at least there was that good aspect of it too.
But hopefully people will learn from this conference, and
I definitely think it was a learning experience at the very least.
Yeah.
We need to be better, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We need to improve our ideas and grow as a movement and do good. If you're not doing good, what good are you? Little deepity for you.
I'm quoting it.
Yeah, I'll make that into a meme.
Yeah.
If you're not doing good, what good are you? Stupid. Hey, I try, okay? Yeah. Well, hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into what happened with the conference. And if you have any questions about it or want to hear more about, you know, the things that happened, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to come on, you know, somebody's podcast and talk about the experience and stuff like that. The places that you can contact us are at our email address, which is reallifebeyondfaith@gmail.com. You can get a hold of us on Twitter at RLBFpod. And then we're also on Facebook, facebook.com/reallifebeyondfaith. And of course, you can just look for us individually. I'm Jenica Crail and
I'm Patrick Crail.
Yeah, so you can just look us up. I'm pretty sure that I'm the only Jenica Crail that exists. And Patrick is probably the only Patrick Crail. So
yeah, hopefully.
Look us up. And I'm sorry, this isn't like a typical podcast for us. Like, this isn't going to be like what our episodes usually are. This was kind of a last minute, hey, do you want to just talk about the conference thing? Because I know a lot of people want to hear like how it went down and what happened from an insider's perspective.
Yeah. Plus, we probably won't be going to many shit show conferences.
Right. At least I hope not. Gosh, like one of the first warning signs for me was when I got checked by metal detectors going into the thing. I'm like, is it too late to back out? And like, oh, that's what I told Seth Andrews today when he called. He was calling to like hear like a rundown of what happened from someone who was actually there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not used to going to a conference and having to be checked at the door with a metal detector. That's kind of not a good sign.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
So we wanted to, as always, thank our patrons for supporting us. It goes a long way.
So we want to thank a few of our patrons who are at the level of support where they get to plug something at the end of every episode. And of course, this week, the first person we want to thank is Thomas Smith. He did an absolutely incredible job this weekend. He was in pretty much a no-win situation, and he came out, in my opinion, a bigger man than anyone there. So, and his podcast is Serious Inquiries Only. You can go there and check him out. Definitely do, because he's fantastic. And you'll get to hear more about what happened at the conference.
Yeah, especially in the next couple weeks. I'm sure he'll be talking about it.
Yeah, at least on the next episode that he puts out.
Right.
And on that episode, or on that show, Serious Inquiries Only, he talks about science, politics, religion, and so much more. And he brings on special guests and sometimes interviews people, sometimes debates people. It's really great. Check him out.
We also want to thank Justin Krebs for his support. And he wants us to talk about Atheists Fight Hunger. It's this organization. They are trying to raise some money to feed the hungry. The weekend of October 13th through 15th of this year. So that's, as of now, in 2 weekends. That's the final date for it. So far, they have a little bit over $5,000 raised. Their goal is $10,000, and they hope to be able to feed a lot of hungry people. Last year, they fed 30,000 people with about $7,500. So they're about halfway there to their goal. So a little bit more would help feed the hungry. Check it out, Atheist Fight Hunger. We'll put a link in the show notes.
The third person we would like to thank is Rich Kemp, who would like us to plug Recovering from Religion. Like I said, tonight I actually led a Recovering from Religion support group, and it was really nice. It's a great organization. Check them out. You can go to recoveringfromreligion.org and check out the helpline, the chat line, and maybe even become a volunteer.
So I think that does it for our show this week, right?
Yep. I think so. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you have an awesome week. We'll catch you next time. But in the meantime,
keep it real.